Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my review of the books of Charles Fort, continuing on with the Book of the Damned. As always, you can find all shows and links to social media, other ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the podcast website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Please also check out the links in every episode description for friends of the show. Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her channel, and Michael Strange and Troubled Minds, both the show and the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear my show and other amazing shows 24/7. So we are continuing on with the first chapter of The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. And this is his first book on anomalous events. And so we're in sort of his introduction into all of this. So we're going to get right back into the book here and keep going. So this next section starts off. It says, as to the logic of our expressions to come, that there is only quasi-logic in our mode of seeming, that nothing ever has been proved, because there is nothing to prove. When I say that there is nothing to prove, I mean that to those who accept continuity, or the merging away of all phenomena into other phenomena, without positive demarcations one from another, there is, in a positive sense, no one thing. There is nothing to prove. For instance, nothing can be proved to be an animal, because animalness and vegetableness are not positively different. Also, just a quick, I should probably said this first couple episodes. These are Fort's views, and we're not all going to agree with them. So all the time, I don't really know how I feel about that statement, but either way, just so everyone knows, this is a book that was not written by me, and this is also an older book, so there will probably be things that you hear that do not track with current understanding or thoughts of how things work. So I forgot to mention that in the first couple episodes there. But anyway, there are some expressions of life that are as much vegetable as animal, or that represent the merging of animalness and vegetableness. That's a hard word to say. There is then no positive test, standard, criterion, means of forming an opinion. As distinct from vegetables, animals do not exist. There is nothing to prove. Nothing could be proved to be good, for instance. There is nothing in our existence that is good in a positive sense, or as really outlined from evil. If to forgive be good in times of peace, it is evil in wartime. There is nothing to prove good in our experience is continuous with, or is only another aspect of evil. As to what I'm trying to do now, I accept only if I can't see universally, I only localize. So, of course, then, that nothing ever has been proved. That theological pronouncements are as much open to doubt as ever they were, but that by a hypnotizing process, they become dominant over the majority of minds in their era. That in a succeeding era, the laws, dogmas, formulas, principles of materialistic science never were proved because they're only localizations simulating the universal, but that the leading minds of their era of dominance were hypnotized into more or less firmly believing them. Newton's three laws, and that they are attempts to achieve positiveness or to defy and break continuity, and are as unreal as are all other attempts to localize the universal. That if every observable body is continuous, immediately or immediately, those are some words, with all other bodies, it cannot be influenced only by its own inertia, so that there is no way of knowing what the phenomena of inertia may be. That if all things are reacting to an infinitude of forces, there is no way of knowing what the effects of only one impressed force would be. That if every reaction is continuous with its action, it cannot be conceived of as a whole, and that there is no way of conceiving what it might be equal and opposite to, or that Newton's three laws are three articles of faith, or that demons and angels and inertias and reactions are all mythological characters, but that in their eras of dominance, they were almost as firmly believed in as if they had been proved. Enormities and preposterousnesses will march. They will be proved as well as Moses or Darwin or Lyell ever proved anything. That's into that section. So again, just going into more of Fort's thoughts on just the nature of everything, and from science to religion to everything. So let's see here. This next section says, we substitute acceptance for belief. Cells of an embryo take on different appearances in different eras. The more firmly established, the more difficult to change. That social organism is embryonic. That firmly to believe is to impede development. That only temporarily to accept is to facilitate. But except that we substitute acceptance for belief, our methods will be the conventional methods, the means by which every belief has been formulated and supported. Or our methods will be the methods of theologians and savages and scientists and children. Because if all phenomena are continuous, there can be no positively different methods. By the inconclusive means and methods of cardinals and fortune tellers and evolutionists and peasants, methods which must be inconclusive if they relate always to the local, and if there is nothing local to conclude, we shall write this book. If it function as an expression of its era, it will prevail. All sciences begin with attempts to define. Nothing ever has been defined, because there is nothing to define. Darwin wrote The Origin of Species. He was never able to tell what he meant by a species. It is not possible to define. Nothing has ever been finally found out, because there is nothing final to find out. It's like looking for a needle that no one ever lost in a haystack that never was. But that scientific attempts really to find out something, whereas really there is nothing to find out, are attempts themselves really to be something. A seeker of truth, he will never find it. But the dimmest of possibilities, he may himself become truth. Or that science is more than an inquiry, that it is a pseudo-construction or a quasi-organization, that it is an attempt to break away and locally establish harmony, stability, equilibrium, consistency, entity. Dimmest of possibilities that it may succeed. That ours is a pseudo-existence, and that all appearances in it partake of its essential fictitiousness. But that some appearances approximate far more highly to the positive state than do others. We conceive of all things as occupying gradations or steps in series between positiveness and negativeness, or realness and unrealness. That some seeming things are more nearly consistent, just, beautiful, unified, individual, harmonious, stable, than others. We are not realists. We are not idealists. We are intermediatists. That nothing is real, but that nothing is unreal. That all phenomena are approximations, one way or the other, between realness and unrealness. Let me see. So then, that our whole quasi-existence is an intermediate stage between positiveness and negativeness, or realness and unrealness, like purgatory, I think. But in our summing up, which was very sketchily done, we omitted to make clear that realness is an aspect of the positive state. By realness, I mean that which does not merge away into something else, and that which is not partly something else, that which is not a reaction to or an imitation of something else. By a real hero, we mean one who is not partly a coward, or whose actions and motives do not merge away into cowardice. But if in continuity all things do merge, by realness, I mean the universal, besides which there is nothing with which to merge. That though the local might be universalized, it is not conceivable that the universal can be localized, but that high approximations there may be, and that these approximate successes may be translated out of intermediateness into realness. Quite as, in a relative sense, the industrial world recruits itself by translating out of unrealness or out of the seemingly less real imaginings of inventors. Machines which seem, when set up in factories, to have more of realness than they had when only imagined. That all progress, if all progress is toward stability, organization, harmony, consistency, or positiveness, is the attempt to become real. So then, in general metaphysical terms, our expression is that, like a purgatory, all that is commonly called existence, which we call intermediateness, is quasi-existence, neither real nor unreal, but expression of attempt to become real, or to generate for or recruit a real existence. Our acceptance is that science, though usually thought of so specifically, or in its own local terms, usually supposed to be a prying into old bones, bugs, unsavory messes, is an expression of this one spirit animating all intermediateness. That if science could absolutely exclude all data but its own present data, or that which is assimilable with the present quasi-organization, it would be a real system with positively definite outlines. It would be real. Its seeming approximation to consistency, stability, system, positiveness, or realness is sustained by damning the irreconcilable or the unassimilable. All would be well. All would be heavenly if the damned would only stay damned. And that is the end of that chapter. So again, you have him talking about not only the state of the universe or the state of thought. There's dogma, and then there's maybe what things, I don't know, what things seem to be, and those things can change. So in the chat here, thank you, APOC, for the post here. APOC says, I see what he means. Like a freeze frame in the ongoing evolution of a thing, simply to label it so we can define it, because all is constantly evolving. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even just these books, there are parts where, and I don't remember now exactly what parts, but there are things that were thought at the time he wrote these books that now many people think are just completely wrong. But there's so much other stuff, like I said, that he writes about. Like every once in a while, when I'm listening to podcasts or looking for true stories, not so much when I've been looking myself, but I still hear on different shows here and there about experiences, people talking about things falling from the sky, rains of frogs or rains of different things, and this is in the modern time. So, but yet experiences and almost things do seem to keep changing slowly over time too. So even that is different from what it was. So even that maybe, I don't know, is evolving. That's an amazing thought there. But again, we have these snapshots both in Fort's works and our own experiences and things we read about and heard about of maybe what we think of as being paranormal, that they were one way at one point in time, but now they're different, or at least they seem to be in some cases. So anyway, let's start this next chapter here. We'll get at least a little bit read of this next chapter. Yes, Apoc says they're transitioning from one state to another. Yep. So let's start the second chapter here. This one says, in the autumn of 1883, and for years afterward, occurred brilliant colored sunsets, such as had never been seen before, within the memory of all observers. Also, there were blue moons. I think that one is likely to smile incredulously at the notion of blue moons. Nevertheless, they were as common as were green suns in 1883. Science had to account for these unconventionalities. Such publications as Nature and Knowledge were besieged with inquiries. I suppose in Alaska and in the South Sea Islands, all the medicine men were similarly upon trial. Something had to be thought of. Upon the 28th of August, 1883, the volcano of Krakatoa of the Straits of Sunda, Sunda, had blown up. Terrific. We're told that the sound was heard 2,000 miles and that 36,380 persons were killed. Seems just a little unscientific or impositive to me. Marvel to me, we're not told 2,163 miles and 36,387 persons. The volume of smoke that went up must have been visible to other planets, or tormented with our crawlings and scurryings. The Earth complained to Mars, swore a vast black oath at us. In all the textbooks that mention this occurrence, no exception so far as I have read, is said that the extraordinary atmospheric effects of 1883 were first noticed in the last of August or the 1st of September. So we're going to stop there. So now we're getting into the most interesting parts of these books. Reports of things. Why is my Discord not opening? There we go. And this is where we get to the interesting parts, I think, overall. Although I do think it was important to read through that first chapter just to get an idea of how Fort thought of things, what his thinking was in putting together this book and probably the other books. I do think it was important for these first 2 episodes to go over that first chapter, just so we could get an idea of how he thinks and how he thought and went forward with making these books. So anyway, thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.